Welcome to D&D Civil War, A Realm Awakened, Session 4, Reliving History. Are you guys all set over here?
As I'll ever be.
Yep.
Alright, so it's been a little while since we played. Quickly go over everything that had taken place. We started last session with Mariel Gladomain, the Queen, escorting you north or northwest into Upper Keleto. The sights and activities all around Upper Keleto is much different than what it is through the other parts of the city. Lots of nobles, lots of representatives from various races and the noble houses within the districts or the wards within the city all kind of gather around here to do whatever business they might have, whether it's negotiating with some of the other representatives or speaking with the High Council themselves or visiting the registry, which you guys had a wonderful experience with. Either way, you finally make it into the ward, passing by varying new buildings that have only been in existence for a few years now here in the city. Making your way over to the Gladomain High Hall, where the High Council resides. And as you make your way within, getting ready to perform your duties as the Festival Negotiation Committee, you walk in and notice the place isn't empty. In fact, there's kind of a lot of people here. Most of the High Council is there. In fact, as you were kind of looking around, you noticed really the only person that wasn't there was Amriel, which kind of isn't too unsurprising, but it does seem a little strange that the others were there and she wasn't. Celeste finding this a little better for her, knowing that her mother was not there to greet them whenever they first arrived. But as you walked in, you take a look around and you notice there are a lot of representatives here. A lot of members looking or needing assistance before the festival can actually begin. You're directed over towards Representative Renan Norell, which is the representative for the Selavash ward, which is the trade and seaport ward of the city itself. She told you of an issue that House Lorandar was having with some of the Warforged that work with their organization. She mentioned that the group pays very well, finding it a bit odd that the Warforged are talking about going on strike and potentially shutting down the festival this year. And we're looking to you to help negotiate and figure out what it is that is bothering the Warforged and how to make things right so that the festival is not interrupted. Continued around the room, meeting with Cassius Stormholm. As you were speaking to him, noticed he was kind of awkward being there. Didn't really... You could tell he wasn't really comfortable being in this position, despite the fact that he grew up in the House of the King all of his life. As you begin to talk with him, you find out that he's looking to pay for a group of bards to entertain the people throughout the city during this festival that is coming up. And he had a request to go around the city and find 6 of the greatest bards within the city walls and have them perform on behalf of House Stormholm. He gave you a list of locations or a list of names to which you would take and eventually make your way over to the registry to get addresses for, so that you would know how to track down each one of these locations. You spoke with a couple other individuals as a party split. One being Representative Kraybot, the very androgynous drow that was kind of hanging out into the back, mostly spending most of his time around Gilly Gladomain. You notice that they were not really worried about anything else. No, you also, as you were speaking with them, began to get this feeling that the drow population really didn't care if they mingled well with others, as evident by the fact that they have never really participated in the ceremonial giving to the city as all of the other noble houses have. As you were speaking with Representative Kraybot, they explained that they had a proposition and wanted you to speak with an archaeologist and shopkeeper by the name of Sheris. Could be found in the trade ward. They mentioned that they're looking for an old gnomish relic called Bynix Eye, which can be found on the island of Misselthurm. Taking that information, you begin to try to figure out how long it would take and how to get there. And you mentioned that they mentioned that Sheris would have a airship ready to take over there whenever you were ready. It would only take about 4 hours to get there by airship, and when you're there, should have plenty of time to be able to dive in to this lost city and gather the relic and bring it back. The last one that you had also spoken with was Representative Damodini, which is one of the dragon-marked houses here in the city. As you were speaking with them, they were looking for something they were offering something that was actually of interest to Frederick. With Freddie coming to Mariel and mentioning that the Flaming Fist would like to handle the security detail, Mariel suggested speaking with Representative Damodini because, unfortunately for the Flaming Fist, there's not enough troops to be able to handle the output that would be necessary to protect all of the nobles for this festival. Taldor would agree and tell the party to meet him at Sentinel North, or to meet the captain at Sentinel North, so that they could organize some troops and begin to assign them to the Flaming Fist. After taking this time and continuing your conversations with these individuals, you noticed this was pretty much the individuals that had immediate requests, things that had to be taken care of, and that they didn't feel they could handle by themselves. It was at that point that the Queen walked back up to you, explaining a bit of a situation that she had had in days prior. She mentioned that the Archmage of the followers of Ezator had a private council session with her, which is not unheard of. Many individuals request private counsel for anything from diplomatic reasons to just looking for guidance on how to better lead the people within the city. Afia, the Archmage from the followers of Ezator, would say something that kind of struck Mariel a bit wrong. Something along the lines of, this time, things will be different. It didn't set well with her, and she mentioned it to you, not really wanting or expecting you to look into it, just wanting you understand her concern, knowing how close it is to the 25th anniversary of the Sundering. And with that, you took all of the information you had gathered, made your way southeast of the High Council, and visited the city registry. It was here things got interesting. Well, funny.
Frustrating.
Funny.
Incredibly frustrating.
Annoying.
You walked in, and there was a number box. And within it, you picked up a number. The plaque in your hand reading number 10. But that number was never called, because number 11 was the next one up. You waited, and waited, and waited. Looked back into the box. Noticed that the numbers were out of place. You went up and spoke with, or went to go speak with the individual Hilda Gray that was sitting behind the desk. And she kind of blew you off and told you to go away unless you have a number. She isn't going to help you. After a bit of a drawn-out situation and frustration trying to make sure that you had your 1072 long form filled out, then she finally would honor your request, taking it, sending it to these small clockworks that would go and search through a very large kind of like database, just a bunch of files, file folders, all through these like elevator shafts on either side of the room. As they searched, some time would pass, and when they would finally return 5 minutes later, she would hold this document in her hand, look at it, look at you, stamp it, and then hand it to you, saying, "Thank you, have a nice day," with a bit of a snide attitude as she did so. But that was where we ended our session almost a month ago. Let's get the map zoomed out. Holy cow, this is not easy to organize here. Okay, so with that, you make your way back out into the streets. The south, or almost southernmost portion of Upper Keleto, down here at Point 5. You now have the information you need to go to the ends. You were told that it might benefit you to make your way to the Hall of Remembrance to freshen up on your history of the rise and fall of the Ascended. But it's completely up to you whether you want to do that or not.
If I remember, we're going to.
I believe that was what you had mentioned before.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think that was the plan.
Yep.
All right. Just gonna grab some other music here.
Something more dramatic.
No, something just calmer. There we go. Okay, yeah, so you step out of the registry, obviously frustrated, disliking the events that took place within, but yeah, this map is yours. If you're going to head up, you are looking for the Hall of Remembrance, which is number 6, if that is the current plan.
Yes. But I don't like the way you're saying it.
What do you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, you kind of wander around, make your way as you kind of make your way northwest, passing by the Seven Guardians, these large pillars that are kind of built into the mountain, that are kind of carved into the shapes of the individuals, 7 of the initial founders. They helped to build the original home of the Gladomain in Sidore. As you kind of wander by, you notice this place is a little more active than perhaps you're used to seeing. Part of it because of the upcoming celebrations. People are gathered around, just looking to kind of catch up on their history and see how it all began and everything. And as you begin to make your way towards the Hall of Remembrance, you notice this is even more apparent. There's a very large, as you're walking up here, it's a very large 2-story building with these 4 towering obelisks standing at the entryway of it. The building is kind of tucked away back into the back here. It's kind of stuck or hidden behind many of these other buildings around that are quite a bit larger and stand a considerable amount taller than what it does, though none of them really reaching above the walls of Upper Keleto itself. The only exception, of course, being the Holy Shrine of Tyrus at the center. You do notice it is very active this time of year. The people looking to kind of embrace the story of the heroes that saved the realm. This building itself is almost entirely made of white marble, which is much different than everything else here. Everything else you're noticing is a very plain gray or like a sandstone. This building is entirely made of marble. Like from top to bottom, everything in this building is made of marble. From the outside, as you begin to approach, there are 2 somewhat large double doors that lead into this building, kind of push open into the chambers themselves. You notice that the doors are almost constantly pushed open because there are people almost always coming in and out of this building. The closer you get to the building itself, you notice there are several members of Ebon Company even flanking the entryway, though you're kind of certain that it's mostly just a deterrent for theft and things of that nature, being a museum and holding some important artifacts and artwork within it. As you enter into the hall, it's kind of breathtaking. The center, the core of the building itself is a very large stone bas-relief mural that basically extends from the floor all the way to the ceiling. It separates the second floor, kind of cutting through it and exposing it with a couple of balconies that flank on each side, so you can overlook the people down below and then see the mural off to the north. The mural is a depiction of each one of the heroes of the realm, and at its center is a very detailed and very refined look of the old city of Keleto, with the sun resting over the mountains to the south. As you walk in, kind of take a look around and just taking it in for a second, it doesn't take long before you start to hear the shuffle of feet against the marble coming in your direction. Oh yes, hi friends, hi. Come in. Don't be shy. I was wondering how long it would be before you would make it into this hall.
Who is it that's talking to us?
As you look forward, you see this kind of older individual. He's wearing some pretty ornate-looking robes. As you're looking at the robes, the colors and the patterns on them match a lot of the banners that are kind of hanging around within this museum. He's somewhat of an older man, probably close to about 50 years old, wears a pair of glasses that rest on his nose, his hair turning gray with age, and covers everything, like his beard and his eyebrows. You see like this salt and pepper, gray and black, that kind of covers all of his hair. Kind of small, though small in terms of height. He's very bulky in size, almost muscular, a muscular frame, but has a very kind of nerdy or geekish outlook or appearance for you guys.
Is that anyone that I would recognize?
No, this just seems to be, from what you're kind of gathering here and taking a look around, you can tell it's a curator of the museum itself.
I'm gonna step forward and hold out my hand and introduce myself to this person.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Vivian. What's yours?
Vivian, oh. My name, I'm curator Cerritos. I pretty much live here now. I'm actually quite excited that you guys are here. I wasn't sure how long it would take before you would actually make your way up here. I've heard so much about you.
About who?
Well, all of you, of course.
You may have to elaborate.
Yeah, who did you hear about us from?
What do you mean? It's not a surprise. I he kind of stops and
I think Vivian is surprised because she doesn't carry a Gladomain or a Paradris to her name.
No, but you're the daughter of Avalana.
How do you know that?
Well, of course the Gladomains told me. Hey, it's no surprise that you're here. They don't just openly invite people to come out and explore this magical, wonderful world that we have here for nothing. Kind of stammers a bit, and like you could tell he's a bit awkward at the moment. Like the fact that Avalana or that Vivian is kind of questioning him a little bit. He's like, this isn't okay. Okay, I've done something wrong.
I'll speak of saying, forgive us. We weren't actually expecting anyone to receive us when we were coming here, and as well as Vivian is not used to, let's say, not used to being waited on necessarily. So.
Oh well, I mean, I guess I can understand that. It's fine though. It's fine. You'll be fine here, and plus, you'll get to see all of this, all of the magic in here. You'll love this. I promise. It's worth your trip. And almost as soon as he kind of finishes his sentence, he starts walking and is like motioning for you guys to follow him. More specifically, looking in the direction of Vivian, who he seems to be paying very close attention to. As he walks you over, you walk into the right side of this building. As you're entering and kind of etched into the balcony above, with kind of arrows pointing downward, you see etched into the stone the words Gallery of Champions. As you step forward, you quickly notice there's a theme to certain parts of this museum. You have happened to wander into the Empire side of the museum as he kind of drags you along, bringing you in here. And I'm going to send you this. He leads you in and walks you around this chamber. As he walks you in, he's pointing out every single painting along the way, pointing to them and explaining a very brief overview of what each one of them is.
Forge?
Yep.
Just not a Vivian question, but what is the False Harbor painting show?
Well, it's funny that you should ask, because there are going to be a lot of paintings that will be both good and bad.
There's so many paintings.
There's so many
There's so many paintings listed. Also, just an actual Ryland thing. I got 5th billing in Heroes of the Isles.
Yes, because I was going alphabetical.
Oh, well. All right,
So
that's
yes.
fine then.
Yeah, why
That's
is Knock
fine.
so high up on the list?
Right?
Like, really? I got put underneath Knock?
So he walks you over. The very first painting that he comes to is one of Avalana. And he looks directly at Vivian and says, "Certainly you know who this is, your mother."
Well, obviously I know who my mom is.
Well, she's quite
What a
important.
brat.
Right?
Quite important to our story. You see, a lot of things that happened here in our city happened because of her. And as you're looking at this painting, it's a
Are you saying
painting-
this is all my fault, Forge?
No, I am not saying that. As you're looking at this painting is actually a depiction of Avalana walking the streets of Baldar's Gate on her way to get on the ship to come over to the Living Isles. And in this painting, it shows her walking and kind of with a little bit of flair, telling the stories of dragons and things of that nature to the children that are all following her as she's walking. You notice these paintings are somewhat unique. You've encountered something similar to them before. They're animated. As you're watching, they kind of move, the paint moving across the surface of each one of these. She's kind of joyfully telling stories as she's wandering by. She said, as they're kind of walking and he's explaining to you the little details in the painting, what you were seeing and where it was taken, the story behind it, he looks at you and says, "Well, I mean, there's so many paintings here. I could go on for days just telling everything, but what's important to you? Which of these matter to you? Which of them catch your attention?"
I feel like the Falls Harbor painting really catches my attention.
Here's what we're going to do. If you are interested in any of the Empire paintings, roll 2d12.
Tell me what it says. I want to know if it's about me murdering the entire village.
Wow.
If you want. / first.
What's going on?
You were rolling to see if basically what paintings within the Empire side of this gallery interest you, as your eyes are kind of wandering around the room. We will start with...
I want to know what freaking 12 is.
We will start with Salty's roll here. 17. Getting lost in the woodlands. Okay. As Jess is walking around and you guys are looking through all of the gallery, one catches her attention. She walks over and sees a painting of a wooded section. Just looks like a square room that's made out of trees that's surrounded with a few entryways. And on the ground, she sees a couple of glowing runes. And in this chamber, she sees Avalana standing there thinking and watching as this little Kenku takes off out of the room, and then somebody follows it. But as they follow it, they end up repeating and coming right back where they were at. And this continues. This is the entire animation of the person running out and then coming back, and said, yes, this is a funny story. You see, when I had spoken to the others, they wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of this story because it was important to them. It showed that Avalana was capable of understanding how to get here. And not just that, but it led them to the temple of, what's her name? Mistra. It took a long time for them to figure it out, but eventually, it was Avalana that understood how to get out and figured out the trick. And once she did, and she could see into this vision of this Kenku running through the forest, she was able to get the others to unlock the chamber, and everybody could descend into the Temple of Mistra. The thing is that secret is now locked away because your mother is the only one that knows how that can ever happen again. Kind of stops and notices as Freddy is wandering around and stops at the challenge of Telkara. This painting is a painting of Belvedere and Avalana standing inside of the pit at Telkara, and directly across from them is a were-tiger that is facing them down and getting ready to start his attack. As he gets ready to lunge forward, the scene resets. As the scene resets, it continues to show this same depiction, and the curator kind of walks up and says, "Oh yes, this was funny because it took a little while, but it was a challenge from the Silver Dragon that wanted them to understand exactly what it meant to show mercy in certain cases, or in some situations to outthink your opponent. This was quite challenging, and especially for your former mentor." And looking at Freddy, it was very challenging for him because they weren't sure how to approach it. As they were facing all of these beasts along the way, the challenges that they were facing, they weren't just people fighting in battles to the death. It was honor and respect. And then, of course, the snake person at the end was a bit different. They didn't even fight him. They just told him to forfeit, and he quit.
Indeed. I was actually, if I do remember correctly, slightly out of character, Freddy was actually there for that.
He wasn't.
He was not.
He was sent back to
Keleto.
Stormhome
Mm-hmm.
or Keleto, somewhere to get the pearl made into a ring.
Yep. Yeah, because
Who was with us then?
if you remember, Kai and Freddy took you there, but then they dropped you off and started heading back because you had other plans for them because you knew you were going to go up and into the forest. So you were going north of the city.
No, they didn't go back until the next day. When we first got there, we almost immediately got arrested. Was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember they were there to watch it, but then they got sent back the next day after we were departing.
That's correct, yes. It was the next day, you're right. So yes, this would stand out to Freddy. He looks at it and is like, oh yeah, I remember this. This was a thing.
I got to actually watch this in person.
Celeste and Vivian walks over, standing kind of in between pictures 11 and 12. He walks by or up to picture 11. This picture is the picture of the festival or the feast that they had, the Heroes Feast. When you had first defeated the ghost and the elementals within the Holy Shrine of Tears. As you were within that, and the ghost went away, and everybody thought, everything is fantastic. This is great. We have survived. Everything is good. That was when Mariel, on behalf of the High Council, would pledge her support to the king, obviously, offering to send troops in favor of the Empire. It was somewhat important because as you're looking around and looking at this painting itself, it's mostly just the kind of feast itself, people drinking and eating food and things of that nature, but certain people pop out in your head. People like Kai is amongst the group. As he was being in the back with Mariel as being introduced to Vormash. Slavomir is just getting hammered, and Avalana is just kind of mingling with the others. And it was a very fun and interesting turn of events. Just something to relax and get their mind off of this really weird moment that just happened in their city, and the people very thankful that this menace was taken care of. As you look over the painting, the curator walks over and says, "Ah, yes, that was the first time that our adventurers met their would-be villain. They didn't know it, of course, but it was a very important meeting for them. You see, when Kai returned, the people didn't know. They didn't know what had happened to him. He kept to himself mostly, and this situation, this scene, something changed. I don't know what it was. I couldn't even begin to tell you because to be honest, I was just a nobody at the time, but this scene matters. Something about this scene matters." And he kind of stops and, like, something in his head, he just can't shake it. He stands there for a moment and thinks, and almost as if he's trying to make sense of something but can't quite grasp it. But then he turns and looks to the painting directly beside it. This one definitely catching the eye of Vivian, despite her roll.
Yes.
Yeah, we could probably just move on past it. I don't think
we
it's
can
very
move
interesting.
on. It's okay. You look over at the painting directly beside it, and in this painting is Tyrus, holding the staff of power, his hand holding on to an orb that is kind of floating over his hand, or not really holding onto it, I guess, but it's kind of floating over his open hand. And directly in front of him, her eyes completely blacked out, is Eleonora. This is the scene where just before Avalana turned and began running straight towards him, he prepared the Hellfire Orb and was getting ready to launch it on the party and on the innocent citizens of the village. Seeing this very dark and mysterious figure, immediately gaining the attention of Vivian, the curator turns and looks at it and says, "Oh yes, that was important to your mother too. You see, that woman in that painting, that was somebody that she was sent to protect. And that man is Tyrus. That was who Kai," points back at the other picture, "that's who he becomes. He took her. He needed her. He needed her powers and her ability to decipher this book that he had been gathering and having made for him over the years. And she held on to this book for a long time until she could finally get away from his grasp and drop it as a clue. It was important to your mother that you tracked her down and saved her. This scene, well, it wasn't a good scene. Of all the moments in our heroes' paths, this one was deadly to people other than themselves." He kind of clears his throat and looks down at the floor a bit as he continues to walk away.
What happened?
I'm sorry?
You said this was a deadly moment. What happened?
He kind of looks at the floor. Your mother provoked him. That orb that's in his hand, he killed most of the village with it because your mother charged forward. We don't know what would have happened if she would have stayed. Looked like he was just threatening at the time, but as luck would have it, at least a couple people survived, your mother included.
I'm just gonna go stand by the doors now and not talk to anybody.
I doubt Kai would have stayed his hand regardless.
As you say that, the curator kind of shrugs, like in unknowing, like he's not really sure. And he looks at you and says, There were many things about Kai Gladomain that we still don't know, but that perhaps the power was just getting to him. I don't really know. It's hard to say whether he would have stayed his hand in this case, or if he just always intended to get what he wanted and destroy anything in his wake. I mean, as we'll see soon enough, there were a couple of times where he resisted, and a couple of times where he didn't. It's hard to tell. As you continue looking over these paintings, and I'll kind of give you a breakdown of them as we go, kind of starting from the beginning. The very beginning, the picture of Belvedere is a picture of him standing and overlooking where Fort Eltan would be placed in Keleto, with Freddy standing beside him. Cedric, a picture of him shown his first meeting of meeting Amriel Gladomain. For Dorn, it is a picture of her standing next to Lady Gladomain herself. The artifact being placed into her hands. For Slavomir, a picture of him drinking within Freemead Inn, though his braces are off and left behind. For Vormash, pictures showing him meeting with the wizards of Lomera as they came knocking at his door. Then we go through some of the events that had transpired. We see the first meeting of the party as they're boarding the Dauntless Dame. The party fighting off the Kraken. The party eventually making their way to shore, at the Shore of Illusions. We see the arrival of Tyrus, the ghost form, hovering over top of the building, gathering or sending out the warning to the people of giving them 14 days. We eventually get to the first meeting with the party in the basement of the Tipsy Ferret, where they meet with the Ebon Spy Syndicate. We see the initial meeting of Gruprix the Great within the Wizards of Lomera, as he's kind of peeking through the little port on the door. We see the two doppelgangers, and the animation being two wagons going opposite directions, with a mage hand being formed directly behind the wagon of the heroes, giving the middle finger to the doppelgangers. We see the boulder crashing into the building of Elotiran, which prompted the party to head over towards the Iron Mountain, where they would meet the Fire King, Freyas. Picture of him sitting on his throne, kind of overlooking the small, puny group of adventurers that were within the chamber. We have the party.
When we walk by that painting, does he mention Avalana's profession to the Fire King? Or is that a little unknown detail that he just doesn't know?
Roll me a d20. Let's see how much he knows. It's not really known. There were rumors that Avalana was willing to do whatever it took to appease the Fire King, but he did not take her up on the offer.
And before he's a Avalana and Belvedere shipper.
What's that?
And before he's an Avalana and Belvedere shipper.
Mm-hmm. The meeting for peace is the arrival of the Empire at Halfrafel, with Kai actually joking with Avalana to Lady Gladomain about... I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, was it... it was because she had just learned that she was a Gladomain. And
Yep.
he was kind of joking and teasing her about that as the party left the ship and went onto the docks and met with Lady Gladomain, who kind of reassured her that, there's nothing to be shy about and everything's fine. We see the picture of Vormash and the king sitting at the table within the inn the night before the peace meeting. And Vormash standing up and walking away and then kind of disappearing off of the picture. We see Dorn kind of fighting to sift her way through the crowd as the people were carrying Lady Gladomain back after her death. We meet the first meeting the party has with the actual Tyrus Gladomain within the Hall of the Dead, speaking with the undead counselor himself. And then in the center, directly behind the wall mural, is a picture called Two Forces Collide. And it straddles between both sides, the Empire and Alliance, and on the right side is the Empire Party, and on the left side is the Alliance Party, almost face to face, and kind of like that superhero-esque kind of like face-off kind of picture, with the groups setting, and kind of like I said, it's on the back side of the mural. He leads you over towards the Heroes of the Isles section. If you are interested in learning any of these, you may roll for them. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Reroll
Of
that
course.
one. Reroll it.
Please, can I?
Nope.
Come on.
Something about him is just handsome. That's Celeste.
Uh-huh.
No, I think that's hers, considering it came out of her mouth.
So you start making...
We were brought up to hate him.
It's true.
Yeah, there was
You were.
no kind word said about that man in the Peregrine household.
As you make your way over into the section that's called Gallery of Heroes, on the section above, you walk in and begin taking a look around, and immediately, just like before, some of these paintings really stand out to you. Celeste is the first to stop, noticing a picture of Rylan piloting a boat, a kind of older looking boat, and kind of tore up. And then in the painting directly beside it is a man that she's never met, piloting the same boat, only in new condition. As you walk over and start looking at it, almost kind of captivated by this picture, the curator walks over and kind of looks at you and says, "Yeah. Huh." And just starts walking away.
Yeah.
What else can you really say about Skytarnus?
And
Yeah.
truly is the worst pirate ever.
Please tell me there's like graffiti under it that says that.
No. As he walks away, he walks over towards the cistern. As you're looking at this painting is a very... It looks like a very closed off kind of underground, a true cistern beneath the city of Nareen. Where rainwater is collected and kind of filtered out and is used as drinking water. But in this painting, you see the party following one individual. And as they're following him, he goes around the corner and disappears. And then the party follows directly behind, but then stops. As they were chasing this individual, trying to track down where they were headed to, as they were occultists. Basically, the Scarlet Hand had overtaken the Ebon Spy Syndicate's cistern base. As you're looking this over, he kind of looks at it and looks over at the painting directly beside it of the city of Nareen, which is a painting of the Nareen Bria bridge that was the destroyed bridge that's kind of looming off in the distance. And he looks at it and kind of shakes his head and says, "It's such a shame, such a beautiful city. I wish they could get that city back. It's been... God, it feels like ages since the death curse has overtaken that place."
A death curse?
Well, yes. You see... And he kind of stops and takes a deep breath and then looks over at the painting directly beside it. The one titled also, I don't think, did I name it the same on the first one? I did. Titled Tyrus's Arrival. And it looks pretty similar to the one that you saw on the Empire side. In this picture, however, off in the distance, you see a very large building. Directly above the building is the spectral image of Tyrus, doing the same thing that he did in Keleto, giving the people warning that their time would soon expire, giving them I think it was 13-day warning at this point. As you're looking at this, you see a little lower, as you your eyes pan down, you see the 4 party members, Kaisis, Lorigus, Pandora, and Skytarnith, making their way towards it, and behind them, laying on the ground, are dead bodies everywhere, on both sides of the pathway. As you're looking at this painting, he says, "You see, this was a show of force. This was proving that Tyrus was a little more powerful than I think some others might give him credit for. You see, when he first showed up in Nareen, he was able to just walk by and touch any individual and could kill them upon touch. The problem wasn't that he killed them or took their souls or anything of that nature. The problem was that it would curse the body. Curse it in such a way that, well, when the person finally died off and their soul never returned, it would make others sick. And you see later, when the party would fight and save the realm and get the help of Tyr, well, they were able to save those souls that were lost, the ones that were killed off by Tyrus himself, but couldn't do anything for the death plague, and it got worse. The city of Nareen has not been stepped inside of for, well, 25 years. Kind of walks you through in the middle of this conversation, and walks over towards, painting 18, The Fall of Nareen. As you're walking over towards that painting, he's looking at it and says, you see, all of this that I just mentioned led to this. And in this painting, you see a bunch of soldiers trying to force the giant gates closed. And as they're forcing them closed, on the other side, the undead pushing forward, trying to force their way out. As they're doing so, they're trying to bar this door shut, taking this large, very large piece of lumber and wedging it into the outside to block it off, this like makeshift kind of brace. As you're looking at it, the death curse, or death plague as some called it, it consumed everybody that stayed within the city. The estimated numbers of the living were minimal at best. Thousands of people that had originally left the city. Some of them were still affected by it. In total, this massive metropolitan city was dwindled down to several hundred individuals that remained after the curse had kind of hit the city. And he begins to explain this to you and says, proving that this was a pure show of force for Tyrus. Because while the Empire never saw this kind of power, they didn't need to. He kind of looks at all of the other paintings and points out the meeting of Rylan with the party, and how that seemingly changed the events. Going back even further to the picture 13, titled Bria. And in this painting, a picture of the party in a boat making their way from Nareen to Bria. And in this boat is the wrapped up body of Kaisis and his shield resting on his chest. He points all of this stuff out and continues retelling this story, and retells it as if it was almost like a domino effect for the city of Nareen. And as he's explaining it, he stops and says, perhaps that is indeed why they call their ward here within the city Nareen's Folly. Because they weren't prepared for anything of this nature. In fact, nobody was, but they took it lightly. And because they didn't act fast enough, they lost most of their civilians and most of the citizens within the walls. Even to this day, if you go close enough to the shores of Nareen, you'll see the dead bodies swimming, bloated, trying to make their way across. Sure, they get stuck in fishing boats or the nets of the fishermen, but there's really nothing we can do except wait for the bodies to eventually decay. Trying to go within that city that's death, just walking into the city. He starts walking away and heads over towards picture 22. As you're looking at this, it's almost black, just pitch black. And off in the distance, you see what looks like a curtain, but it's like daylight and brilliant colors, like blues and greens shining through it. this is the party. Rylan, Pandora, and Lorigus walking through the deep ethereal, looking and trying to find some way back after a bit of a mishap with an amulet of the plains. As they're wandering through here, you just see them walking towards this very fancy curtain. And he says, that was an interesting thing. You see, most people didn't know about the connection that our realm had with Eberron, but that was the first time that they ever learned how they would be able to get back, or that there was anything there. He kind of chuckles and says, in fact, that was actually where they would meet another pirate of sorts. Kind of pointing over in the direction of Nock's painting, which is just a picture of him and Counselor Teneve within Pilus Talar. And the two of them waiting to try to get inside of the gate of the city. He would look and escort you further, stepping over one, showing you the picture of Shaemordai. It's basically the party standing within this very decorative looking like garden, with Nock and Teneve standing there, and they're performing a ceremony over the fallen body of Lady Gladomain. As he looks at this, he kind of stops and says, I still to this day wish I understood what happened that day. I heard, well, kind of rumors, I guess, that they spoke with her in death. They informed her that it was her son that betrayed her, and, well, I guess just tried to get additional information and try to figure out what to do. This was their first sign that there was a connection for them, I guess. As you're kind of wandering and just looking at some of the other paintings, you see things like the meeting in Luskan, where Skytarnith is gathering travelers to go to the Living Isles, and the party is kind of gathered around. You see in Saving Ashenport, 2 pirate ships off in the distance burning. And on shore, the party with one of the pirates captured, being escorted off into a small shack, which proved to be the biggest mistake of their lives.
You ain't wrong, buddy.
In the Mystic Wilds, you see a painting of a wooded section, very similar to previously, where we talked about the woodlands and the party getting lost there. For the Alliance side, this is a picture of Skytarnith running away as a giant croc burst out of the water to attack the party. See, Noreen and the Cistern we covered the Arrival and Bria. There's a picture of the inside of the old Keleto prison. where the party is escorting Bo Victus out, and Skytarnith is carrying the lifeless body of the pirate Crod on his shoulders, trying to get him out of the prison with them. This picture of the shattered tundra, the party making their way out of the burial grounds of Ezator and coming into the chamber. And you see Rylan laying on the ground unconscious. Kai Gladomain, or Tyrus, his hand outstretched, and Pandora handing over her shard of twilight to him. Of course, it cuts and restarts before you see the rest of the events of it hitting his hand and scalding it, and he pulls away, and before he can attack again, the party vanishes. You see Skytarna's father piloting or commanding everybody aboard the Rotten Mangrove in one of the pictures, including a ghost-like figure of Crod, which was directly below. We see in the labyrinth of mourning dragons, Rylan reaching forward and grabbing on to the shard of twilight, and as he takes it, the basically animation of all of the dragon priests around the room, them coming to life and beginning to chase them, and that cycle repeating over and over. See the meeting for peace with the Alliance arriving and kind of heading off to go do their own thing almost immediately as soon as he got there, paying little mind to Lady Gladomain, who waited to greet them. See the execution of Skytarnith, his head placed on the chopping block. The Empire party, actually, in this picture, witnessing his death.
Yeah, because they weren't there. That took place in Keleto. Wait,
correct.
Was it Keleto or Stormholm?
Yep, it was in Keleto, directly in front of the Holy Shrine. And then, yeah, you see in the back that same massive picture or painting of the Empire and Alliance face to face. As you finish looking over all of these paintings, you start heading upstairs, following this just straight, basically like towards the center of the room where this bas relief is. On the other side of that bas relief is a stairway that leads, it's a pretty wide stairway that leads both up and down, like a guardrail separating in the center. Take this small flight of stairs straight up. As you make your way up, the very first section that you come to, kind of etched into the stone of the wall, are the words, "The Rise and Fall of the Ascended." And as you take a look around, you notice this is very different from the others, where these paintings are smaller in not just number, but size as well. But directly below them are plaques. And on each one of these plaques are some very specific texts that explain what was going on and what has happened, what they were able to decipher of what might have happened to Kai Gladomain. But actually, before we do that, let's stop and take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get into these other sections.
Okay.
Are you going to want us to roll a d10?
Okay.
I will.
I'm glad we skipped over Ryland's arrival, because he was pretty stinky at that point.
Did we see rescuing Bo? Because I feel like that's the story that Forge really wants to recreate for us.
He kind of, I think he went by pretty quick.
Yeah, I mentioned
you can't gloss over it. You have to tell them how Sky Tarnith argued with a voice in the sky for 30 minutes about how hiding in a prison cell is a good idea.
No, and so in that painting, and you can roll to see what all this individual would know about it. I'm sure your mother would have told you more, or your mother and father would have told you more than he probably knows. So
I feel like that's definitely a Pandora story.
So yeah, that's
I tried to stab the crap out of Crod, and he wouldn't let me, and so he got shot to death by the guards by his own stupidity.
So yeah, I kind of envision that, like, that scene as you're seeing, and like I kind of depicted, it was Sky Tarnith carrying Crod on his shoulder, but Crod was already dead. Like, he was trying to escape with his dead body. So like
just for the Empire people, Crod was filled with like 5 or 6 crossbow bolts. The man was pincushioned.
And Sky Tarnith was like, no, we can't leave without him. I made him a promise. And it's like, he's already dead, boyo. Sorry, can't help you.
Best part is Crod didn't want to leave.
I mean, it's okay because Jess's her pet rat is named Crod.
That rat's gonna die. That rat is gonna die. I'm gonna kill that rat.
It'll outlive all of us.
It will outlive all of you, mostly because I'll forget about it and it'll scamper off.
I'm not gonna forget about it.
All right, 5-minute break.
First time Sir's cast a fireball.
Yep.
I was gonna say we're gonna find out it's got the reincarnated soul of Crod.
All the more reason to fireball that little shit.
Uh-huh.
Then Crod soul takes over Jess.
Yep.
Oh my god.
All the more reason to fireball that shape-shifting shit.
All right, so 5 minutes. When we get back, we'll continue discussing the rest of this hall, and I will see how they're going to react, because I'm going to have to get them to give me information too. So because there are going to be things that are going to be important to them. So 5 minutes. When we get back, we'll continue our story. So don't go anywhere. All right, let's get ready to bring this back. Get ready for our session here. I'm just making a couple of notes really quick, and then we will head into this. Is everybody here?
Yeah.
I think so.
Belvedere? Or Belvedere. Freddy?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Belvedere.
Mr. Belvedere. And Jess here? No. Okay. Wait, are you guys complaining about all that?
People are complaining.
Oh, what was the 2,000 years later thing?
Oh, that's old.
Oh.
I think that was jokes about how long
that was jokes about how long it's been since we played. I was like, wait, no. Oh no, this is dragging on. I'm sorry, we'll fix it. I'll kill you real quick, don't worry.
The pain has come alive.
Okay. So, I think we're ready to go. Everybody's here now. So you make your way to the top of this stairway, reading on the side of the wall where it says, "The Rise and Fall of the Ascended." The 10 paintings in this depicting Tyrus's rise and fall. How he is believed to have become where he was, and how things ended. These paintings are all like I had mentioned, smaller than the paintings down below. These being used more in the form of never forget, like these very dark, kind of ominous paintings. The plaques directly below them giving a very brief detail of what's going on. As you're looking at them, everybody immediately looking around this part of the building, your eyes focusing on certain parts as you're kind of glancing through. And as we kind of go through, I'll just go down the list, but then highlight or go into more detail on the ones that caught the attention of your characters. So starting directly off of the stairs to the left, a small picture called The Resurrection. And in this picture is a wizard, his hand outstretched and elevated. And you see the almost lifeless body of Kai Gladomain being lifted off of the ground and kind of being positioned back upright. On the plaque directly below it, it says, while there is no definitive understanding for how Kai became Tyrus or what changed in his mind, it is believed there were wizards looking to bring back his power and his devotion to the blood of Vol. You step over to the next painting and it says Assembling the Masses. And in this painting, it's a painting of Kai in the form of Tyrus, his hands outstretched, standing before thousands of members of the Scarlet Hand, all bowing at his feet. As they assemble around him, the plaque, and kind of like as you're looking at it, there's one individual that's kind of walking place to place, which you guys saw this in the final battle of the actual campaign for Season 1. They're performing a ritual as they're going by, and you see the one Rite Master stepping between each individual and taking their sacrament or their offering for Kai. And the painting below said, or the plaque below reads, once back on the Living Isles, the Scarlet Hand would grow, and thus his power would grow. You continue to the next, and it's a picture of the darkness which set over all of the Forgotten Forest, where you guys had found the large circular platform. In this painting is a depiction of that platform being created at the core of that darkness. And several members of the Scarlet Hand bowing to it and attempting to siphon the power from it. On the plaque directly below, it mentions, much like the other versions of, or other sects within the blood of Vol, the Scarlet Hand would draw most of its power from Mabar itself, worshipping this plane of existence and using that power to appease their god, which in parentheses it says Tyrus. As you're looking at this painting very, very closely, Celeste, it's kind of an uneasy feeling. The curator walks over and looks at it and says, this still exists. Somewhere in the Forgotten Forest, this platform exists, but for some reason the rift to Mabar has shifted. We've sent many people out to explore the area and attempt to find it, but its connection, wherever it went to, it disassociated itself with the Forgotten Forest. It's a little concerning because in order for this, and kind of points out towards the outside of the building, like just kind of gesturing like the city and the way it is, and as he does that, he looks and says, in order for this to exist, that rift still has to be there, because we wouldn't be able to harness Irion's power if Mobar wasn't still here.
If Guy was born here, how did he know to tap into the power of Mobar?
He stops and thinks about everything he knows of Kai and his connection to the Blood of All. And he stops and says, the thing with the Gladomain, and kind of looks directly at you. Your family has always had a connection with Eberron. You have always been able to leave and go, come and go between here and their world anytime you wanted to. It is the power of Irion that has allowed you to do so. Someone or something, possibly, we don't really know yet, corrupted Kai and convinced him that his family's belief within the Undying Court wasn't the right belief for him, that this power resided within him, this godhood, that we as people should be gods. Most of what we understand of the Blood of Vol, based on the history in Eberron and what we have seen here, tells us that they have always, the Blood of Vol anyways, have always sought out the power of Mobar, using that to increase their own divinity, as it were, seek that divinity within. Kai would use this not just for himself, but he was able to tap into the power that his followers would give him. Much like your deities here, it's not too different. If enough people believe and start to follow you, and you can obviously gain some form of godhood, even if it's just lesser. That's basically what happened with him. But more to your question, once he became part of the Blood of Vol, and his connections grew, becoming a member of the clergy and becoming somebody that the Blood of Vol trusted, they began to teach him some of their ways. They didn't know that there was a connection to Mobar here on the Living Isles. They only knew of him within the city, within Shemordai. Him coming back here was, and bringing that knowledge was perhaps coincidental, I guess. And I'm not sure that there's really, I can't really tell you. I guess them offering him more information and more power And leading him in that direction was what led him to begin this journey. Perhaps that was what overtook him, not the resurrection as we once believed it was. As he starts to look and notices Jess directly beside, looking at the picture or painting called Projections. He looks and says, this one speaks for itself, really, but it begins to show his power and his abilities. You see that, and in this painting, it's a side-by-side painting of Keleto and Mabar with the very large astral projection over top of the each of the cities. He points at them and says, this, once he started tapping into Mabar, his power became anything more than what we have ever seen. A power or a spellcasting ability of this magnitude is unheard of. I mean, sure, astral projection is not anything odd or strange, but something like this, it's more than I could have imagined.
This all kind of feels like, I mean, this guy did terrible things, right? So why does it feel like he's being enshrined and worshipped here? Like, am I not understanding something?
Well, you see, it's not an enshrinement. You see this, and kind of points to the paintings that are all around him. These are memories of the evil that he had brought to our people. This is a reminder of what our heroes below had fought for, to save all of us from. These awful creations, and he looks over and the painting directly beside it, a wave of death. In this painting, you're watching as he's walking through the city of Nareen, and his hands are outstretched, and bodies are just collapsing to the ground at his feet as he's walking towards the temple. You look over, painting 6, the Band of Power. You see Tyrus, his hand outstretched, and he's putting on this green emerald band, black and green emerald band around his finger, and this dark necrotic energy just absorbs into his skin. He continues looking around and points out all of these things, and he says, these aren't is a recognition of his power. We can never forget what he has done to our people. By us having this here, and remembering that he once destroyed an entire city, or once tapped into the power of Mabar, we're able to have an understanding of how best to address an issue like this in the future. Because while we can just say or honor our heroes, and if we did nothing else, and that was all we did, there would still be questions as to why. People would always ask, with so many civilians killed in the crossfire, was this really the right choice? Because if we didn't have this part of the puzzle, they would never know.
I see. it definitely kind of. I mean, I understand not wanting to go through the same mistakes as the past and learning from them. It just also kind of feels like he's idolized somewhat in some of these. And maybe that's what the artist was trying to convey. I don't know, because I'm not an artist, so.
And that is true. Like in this one, and points back to the one where it shows all of the Scarlet Hand bowing at his feet. And he points back to that and says, "You're right. This artist is depicting how people are bowing to him and treating him as a god. But what it's also showing is how he became the power that he is. Or was, anyways."
Do people still idolize him?
He shakes his head and says, "Well, as far as we know, no. The blood of Vol and the practice of their religion is outlawed here. Obviously, we can't stop them from doing what they were doing. I mean, even before the blood of Vol changed from their kind of ritualistic belief before to become the Scarlet Hand and what they were following Kai, we couldn't fully push them out or stop them from any belief.
But, I mean, it does seem like it's a step in the right direction.
Yes, and we are doing what we can to prove that this, what we have today, is better for those below, for those that gave us the ability to continue to live, versus what he caused. And as you kind of look around and continue to see some of the paintings, like the Domain of the Ascended and the individuals who, all the cultists that were in the previous painting of assembling masses are now formed within the very large pyramid realm. But in this case, they look almost zombie-ish, as if they've given everything and they are just shells of the people they were. You start to see the kind of death just taking them over at that point. Looking at some of the others, like the Final Encounter painting is the painting of the warlock and beast forms of Kai, and kind of that transformation of him becoming this beast, and the party being kind of towered over, and you see like at the bottom of the painting, the party kind of spread out, and then directly above it, just this beast kind of elevating and growing in size. And then
I have a question. It's very important.
Okay.
What version of Ryland? Is it Zombie Ryland or Zombie Rat Ryland?
I hope it's the rat.
When he switched, that was Zombie Ryland.
Cool.
And then the picture 9 of the Fallen. In this picture, the largest picture here in this section, the heroes are surrounding Tyrus, using their shards of twilight to bring him to his knees, dropping him back into his human form before finally he collapses. This one, unlike the others, a very brilliant and colorful painting, with the light emanating from each one of the shards is just taking Tyrus down. And then in the back, the very last painting, a small picture. One that looks like it was originally a portrait within the house of the Gladomain, of Kai Gladomain, that fades out and slowly becomes the decrepit looking kind of death has overtaken him version of Tyrus. Beneath each of these, as we kind of mentioned before, the text goes on to explain the faults of Tyrus and why these issues must never arise within the realm. As you're kind of looking at them, going back to our roles here, Vivian, the Band of Power, you're paying very close attention to the moment that the ring sets on his finger, and how it almost decays his hand as he puts it on. The obvious deterrent, like this isn't to glorify him. This is showing the corruption within him. Circe, as you're looking at the final encounter painting, the light around the heroes is kind of a very vivid outline around them, whereas the picture of the beast and being animated is almost in darkness. Something to fear, something to be of concern, not something to glorify. And then for Freddy's picture, as he's looking it over, you get this overwhelming sense of almost pride, knowing that Belvedere was here and everything that he was working towards and everything that both parties, the Empire and Alliance, were working towards. The pinnacle of that was bringing this man to his knees and proving that he wasn't going to rule over this realm, proving that he didn't have control over these people, that they would stop this from happening. Every part of these paintings, the more you begin to stare at them, you start noticing the kind of imperfections in the paintings too. They're not perfect recreations by any means. Some of them even kind of hastily put together. But again, mostly reminders of what happened, reminders that this should never happen again. And everything that they do now in this realm and with these people is done to ensure that this will never happen again. As you continue looking these over, you turn and head over to the little crosswalk and make your way to the other side, where as you're looking around, these aren't paintings but artifacts, and some of which are unique, different.
Oh no, they found the dagger.
As you're looking them over, go ahead and roll d8s.
Admittedly, that is absolutely what she'd be interested in.
Jesus,
Holy
everyone.
crap.
The shards of twilight are very interesting.
Everybody yeah, they're super interesting.
I need the other two to roll as well, please. Okay.
And another 8.
There's a spot on the side for the sixth one, and it's like, idiot left it in the guy. By Pandora.
Calypso,
Sorry, what?
I need a D8, please.
6.
Holy cow.
There's a trend going on
There
here.
is. Okay. As you're looking over these items, I'll go over what they are to some effect, and then we'll dive a little deeper into some of these. The first, the original peace treaty. This is the document that Lady Gladomain brought with her and was reading from when the original treaty was being signed. On this, as you kind of take it and look over it, you notice a few things. There are blood splatters across it. The blood of Lady Gladomain, which had stained most of the parchment itself. But beyond that, on top of that blood is fresh ink. Ink of all of the leaders of the realm at that time that was written on top of it after she was killed. And everybody came to the consensus that we're keeping this peace. All of the leaders signed their names onto this treaty. At the bottom of it, it mentions that obviously this particular artifact was donated by the Gladomain High Council. You move over and you see the Crod of Dagger of Crod.
The Crod of Daggers.
The Crod of Daggers. Encased in like 10 inches of glass and mounted and kind of almost like welded into the podiums that are holding it to keep it from being removed. And it just says directly below it, retrieved from the personal effects of Sky Tarnith. The third one is the relic, the pyramid relic that Dorn had. Directly below it, it says donated by Nim Syro on behalf of her mother, Dorn. Number 4, Eleonora's book. This one is interesting because it's opened up. As this book is opened, it's opened up onto one or a couple of pages side by side. That if you were to look through the rest of the book, these were different because they were written in Elvish and not in the older, I can't even remember what I think it was the Selrunian language that was used before. And it's completely different. The text, the fonts, the way it's written is different. And in this, those of you who can read Elvish, you notice that the pages that are shown here are actually from Eleanor's research. In these pages, there were notes of how she had planned to ensure that the heroes could find Kai Gladomain to bring him down. She was notating because, lost in the shuffle of all of these pages, it would be very hard for Kai, because he wasn't really looking at the book. It would be hard for him to find or notice that there was going to be anything out of place. Yes, he wanted the book because there were some very specific things that were very interesting or necessary for him. But those were more in the front of the book. Because she hid them, the information that she had left revealed that she had been building once she had been pulled in by the Scarlet Hand and knew she was pretty much done for, like as she was locked into this cell, and just before the situation with her son, where they had brought her son out and killed him. She was devising a plan to escape and get out of the prison cell. She knew who it was because she had finally met him face to face. But she also knew that if she was to reveal that to somebody, that Kai would know. Having it in writing, as she was supposed to be writing everything to begin with for him, and flipping back and forth, it would get lost. He wouldn't be able to track it as easily. In her note, she dictated that the pyramid relic that she had knew about was not just a key, as it had kind of been indicated before, but it was a resonator, a connection to Mobar, that when somebody would die within the reach of this device, the power would prevent you from coming back to life.
Cough.
But when you pull it away from Mobar, or if you find a way to disable it, the Mobarian resonator will stop. It will allow you to bring back to life, or eventually resurrect or cure a negative infliction. And she knew this because this device had caught her attention. When Lady Gladomain brought it in, she wasn't sure what the actual purpose of it was, and she studied it briefly before finally handing it off to somebody else who maybe had a little better understanding of just ancient artifacts in general. One thing, as she was looking over this item, and it once obviously being in the possession of Lady Gladomain and having such a close connection to them, she knew that there were powers beyond what she was aware of. This was her first time when she first encountered this artifact. This was her first time understanding the connection between Eberron and their realm. So her getting her hands on this artifact gave her a better understanding of something. She wasn't sure what it was, but she started to put the pieces together. Once she finally got into the grasp of Kai, that was kind of the point where she looked back on everything, and as I mentioned, she starts writing and is more scribbling as quickly as she can, trying to get as much information as she can. She packs in the information about where she was being taken, how they can get in, seeing that this was more of a one-off artifact and not just something that everybody carries. She wanted to know, or let people know, that if they are to defeat this realm, or to stop Mabar from having its influence, they would need to disconnect Mabar entirely. But everybody kind of knew that. Well, kind of. But the problem was they didn't want to give up the connection to Irion to do so, as you guys learned. With the power of Mabar growing, she knew that having this resonator within it, or anywhere close to it, would obviously be detrimental. She didn't know the extent of it. She knew that it had to be in the grasp of Mabar and within its power. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything that you would assume it would do. But the book continues and explains a wide variety of these kind of intricate details of what she was able to decipher. And then at the very end of it, it mentions that she knew, that she found out that Kai was responsible for this, almost leaving that note behind for others to find in case she was never to return.
Like somebody murdered her.
Like somebody wanted her dead.
Yeah, is that well known?
Kill people? No, who would do that?
Her whereabouts.
Is it known what
are
happened to
not-
Eleonora? So yeah, Celeste is going to ask what happened to Eleonora.
The curator kind of shrugs and says, after everything was settled and she understood all of this and took back the book and began to decipher and figure everything out and put these details in, she disappeared. We haven't heard from her in over 20 years.
It's almost like somebody could have killed her and nobody would have found out about it.
They'll never find the body.
Is it because you fed them to your children?
Wow, that is dark even for you.
Is it though?
A little bit.
Next, because that was a little long-winded.
I'm thoroughly enjoying this. This is why I really have been keeping quiet.
The shards of Tyrus' Staff of Power. So, these shards, on the plaque directly below it, it reads, donated by Rylan Paradris. Because Nock, just after the party had left, everything was done, Nock started venturing onward. And he took his wonderful little staff and used all of its power. And used all the charges, and all that was left was this black staff with the ruby on top. And he got angry. So he snapped it in half, and when he did, he was teleported off into the Beastlands. But the staff remained, because it dropped out of his hands as soon as he was gone. The staff kind of broke off, and there were several pieces gathered up of it, most of which was collected and placed in here as an artifact to keep. Rylan not really caring what happened to it, because it was just wood and a gem. So at that point, it wasn't going to do anything. All of its power had been used. It was no longer magical. And felt that because they were putting this hall together, it would be very fitting to have that here. Number 6, the Medallions of Ezitor. These were donated by Avalana. Gathered together were all 5 of the circle medallions that the party had gathered, plus the 3 medallions that the Alliance party had gathered, that you guys all found out were eventual keys to unlock certain areas. Ezitor held or used some magic to use these as like an arcane lock. So if you place them on a certain part of a podium, it would unlock something. There were, because the party didn't really know, they had no idea of understanding what else could happen with these keys. They used them where they found necessary, and then afterwards brought all of them here. Avalana brought them here, convinced that maybe some of the people within the city, the people doing research, some of the wizards, could take a look and find something out. But unfortunately, after 15 years of research into what these medallions would do, they could never find any additional uses for them. So they were brought here to the museum when the Hall of Remembrance was put together, and dropped them off and put inside this very nice looking case. Again, everything's kind of closed off or encased in several inches of glass all around it. And kind of tucked away and very neat and orderly and cleaned up and polished and all of that. But all of the medallions that were collected were brought here to rest. The party kind of looks those over. The curator looks at him and says, "Well, I don't know. It feels like we could still do something with these. I don't know what, but I mean..." And he kind of looks at you guys and says, "Who knows? Maybe if you need them and your duty calls, we can just give them to you, and you can find use for them."
The medallions you're speaking of?
Yes.
Are they in like a case, or are they like actually like...
Yeah,
Oh.
they're like in a fancy display case, like set up like each one side by side within this display case. And he kind of shrugs and says, "I don't know. Maybe, just maybe. To be honest, we know as much as you guys might." And kind of points over to Circe and Calypso and says, "I mean, you guys might know something about these. I think your dad has one still."
We under the impression that their dad still has one?
You know that he has that necklace around that he's wearing, and it looks vaguely similar to the ice and fire ones that were here on the podium.
Yeah, Circe looks at her sister to like, "Do you know?"
I just got back from stepping away. What?
The medallion around Ryland's neck. The curse medallion.
Would Ryland have told her about that?
I don't know.
I'm asking Rez.
Oh,
Sorry.
He's asking if he still has it. The curator's asking.
He would still have it, but rather you guys know about it or not is up to you.
Ryland probably wouldn't have told them what it was because he didn't want them to be like, "Oh God, Dad's gonna turn into a scary undead someday."
Okay. So kind of look at each other like, "No?" And he just kind of looks at you and raises an eyebrow. Shrugs. Okay, fine. That's fine. Starts walking away.
What
that
he
was
mentions about being able to use them, would it like have any occurrence that they might be useful for like we're supposed to go like for one of our quests?
They're like a key, aren't they? So
Yes.
if we need the key, we might come back here.
Yeah, if it may come down to maybe you don't have a key that you'll need, and if you needed to find that key, maybe one of these would be the answer. But you get the impression he would be willing to work with you. He's just not going to just hand them over without understanding why you're using them.
Fair enough.
Or taking them out of the museum, more specifically.
What
So
are
you mean
like
people aren't normally allowed to take the artifacts?
Right?
what are the coins? How many coins are in there currently?
So in this case, there were 5 coins that the Empire side gathered, and there were. Did Lorgus grab one of them? No, because you guys didn't have enough time to get through it. And there were 3 that were gathered by the Alliance side, but only 2 of them are in the case. A fire medallion and a frost medallion. Which those are different than the ones that you guys had, where yours had, they almost looked like coins. On the face of them, they were, it actually had like the head of like a noble, but almost every one of them looks like it's been scratched or clawed through. And then on the other side, each one had a unique symbol on the back of them.
Do we know what the symbols were on the 5 Empire coins?
You can see the symbols from where you are. I don't have them marked down, but I can make you a chart for them.
I was gonna take notes of it, but
Okay. Yeah, and you'll be able to mark down each one of the symbols because they're currently setting so that you can see the backs of each one, kind of indicating that they're all different. Number 7 was Vormash's spellbook. This book, as you're looking over it, it just looks like a normal spellbook to you. But it was more of a sentimental thing. It was brought in by Gruprix the Great from Lomera, the gnome that was the high wizard there within the village. He just donated Vormash's old spellbook to add to this, something that was a relic from that time in history.
So is Vormash dead?
I don't know.
Let's ask him.
I was actually about to inquire with the curator about Vormash.
You ask the curator about Vormash and Vormash's whereabouts, and he stops and thinks for a second and says, "Well, last I remember, this was a long time ago. Last I heard, he was visited by Gruprix, and Gruprix said he had somewhere to take him, and he took him to Lomera. Now, if I can remember correctly," and he thinks for a second and kind of stops, like mid-sentence, like just stops talking and just kind of stares off into nothingness. And it's like, "Oh yeah, I think he's still alive. He's still studying. He's probably not going to be good conversation, though."
Like, did he just like suddenly stop talking and then?
Yeah, he
paused
was like
and then started
thinking.
talking again?
he was like thinking about Vormosh's situation and him being where he was and things of that nature.
Did something happen to Vormosh?
Yeah. Oh,
What?
you want me to elaborate? I'm sorry. He's insane.
What do you mean?
Well, he stops and takes a deep breath and says, "That book," and points back to Eleanor's book. Says, "That book right there drove him insane." He was trying to solve the mystery of it, trying to understand the text that was at the beginning of it. The more he read into it, the worse things got, and it started to affect his memory. He kind of closed everybody out, locked himself into his chambers after he left from, well, your parents. Yeah, he's not doing too great.
We're still located in. Alright, go ahead.
Is he still on the Living Isles?
Oh yes, I'm pretty sure he's still in Lomera. I mean, that's if he hasn't gone insane and Grouprix hasn't had to kill him yet. We don't get much communication from the wizards of Lomera. You understand, right?
Freddy just kind of stares at them for a moment, quizzically.
I mean, they don't talk to us. They never leave from their little village, and they don't welcome outsiders very often. So, well, am I to know what's going on in the day-to-day life of Vormosh Edry?
Fair enough, I guess.
Okay. The last case is of 5. Yeah, Vormosh is the big bad. Okay. Within this case are 8 holders formed into a circle, but only 5 shards of twilight rest in them, with 3 of them open. As you look at these, directly below each one, are directly below the platform or the podium that they sit on, it reads, "These were the functioning shards of twilight, now innate, donated by the heroes of the Isles and the champions of the Empire."
It's missing Rylands, though, right?
No, his is there.
Rylands is there?
Mine shouldn't be there.
Why wouldn't yours be there?
I left it in Tiris. And I was dead, so nobody could take it out.
Huh.
Oh, mystery.
You didn't think of
involved.
that?
Oh, I thought of that.
Oh, did I go back and get it?
They're inert unless they run out of power, so anyone can pick them up.
Yeah, I mean, they have no power now. There's nothing within them. Like, nobody can attune to them. Anybody can pick them up now and touch them. They're completely inert.
So I thought we were supposed to take those back after we were done with them.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure Avalana would have listened to her goddess and gave it back to her and not donated it to a museum. Just side note there.
Mm-hmm.
But you do you.
Well, so here's the story. After the events that took place here, each of the heroes, except for Rylan, wanted to do exactly that. They wanted to bring their shards back and put them back on the pedestals in which they would reside. The issues that the party began to run into was that as they got to the temples, they found there was no way to keep them secure. Even if they returned them, the biggest issue with returning these shards was it would reset the power to them and would throw the balance of magic off once again if they got into the wrong hands, because they were no longer protected. These lairs that were keeping all of these shards were now insecure, and returning them to their origin points, basically recharging them. A very long and serious discussion was made between the heroes and the Gladomain. The Gladomain begged the heroes to secure them within this city, wishing not to see that the relics go back where their origin point was, and wishing not to see that power be recharged within these and potentially be used against them, because unfortunately for all of you, there are now people that know where the location of each one of those platforms or podiums which you got these shards from actually are located now.
Didn't I find mine in a fire giant's blade?
Uh-huh.
And people know that fire giants have swords, so there you go.
And the fire giant is evil now.
Yeah,
So,
probably wouldn't be like, hey, can I borrow your sword for a second?
let me just put this
Good job
back.
with that, guys. We just killed the frost giants.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they were gonna kick your asses.
Like you went into the lair of you went into the Shattered Tundra, wiped out everything, including that troll that was protecting it and protecting the entryway into Ezator's tomb, and even killed the dragon priest that was guarding the tomb too. That was intentionally there to destroy any person that tried to interact with the shard.
Speaking out of here, I'm a little surprised that, like, at least
Hey, Fred.
Eleonora's going to get taken back because no one else besides the party and Muriel knew of anything how to actually get there, let alone even getting there in the first place.
As you're looking these over, and the discussion begins to be had from the curator, who mentions information was located within this book, the Eleanor's book. You were tracked. You knew you were tracked because he would talk to you. And even in this book, in some of the pages a little bit later, there's information about where each one of these shards were being picked up from. Even so much as noting certain situations, like, I was unable to take Pandora's shard today because Jesus Christ, that hurt.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary, this sucks.
There's more where that came from, asshole.
So because there was a concern from the High Council to the heroes, feeling that returning these shards could mean anybody, because there were unknown numbers of cultists that were set out into the world that were told to hunt you down. Nothing is stopping any of those cultists from pursuing such acts ever again.
Except, aren't technically that's supposed to be that only those chosen by the gods can handle a charged shard? So
Do you think that's
sure.
going to stop dumb cultists from trying to hunt it down?
No, it doesn't seem like they'd be able to do anything much with it.
You're absolutely
Any
right.
magic can be broken if you try hard enough.
The thing is, and the thought process behind it was, the High Council doesn't want to take that risk of putting these relics back in its place and letting them become recharged again. If they do so, and somebody breaks through that magic and is able to take these relics, they could cause untold damage to the realm. Just to them, that's no. At least if they lock it here, it has to be taken out of the city, back where it was originally at. And by then, they'll know, because each one of them is notated by the curator, where each one of them would belong to. They would be able to quickly track and hunt down any individual who might attempt to steal it from here. It was easier in their case, or in their mind, to keep a close eye on these very powerful relics. And then you notice the open spaces, the 3 open spaces in the podium that would hold additional ones. There's still some out in the world. And as he's kind of overviewing and kind of talking about all of this, the powers behind these shards of twilight, he looks and says, our biggest concern right now is finding where these others are and ensuring that we can secure those locations, because it's far easier to secure one location here than it is to try to secure 8 out into the world.
But at the least, I guess, take some solace in that no one knows exactly where those are, then, I guess. Even the heroes never managed to find them.
He nods and says, that's kind of how we are approaching this. We know where these are, so we can protect them. The ones that we don't know about, we're still searching for. We want to find them. But even if we find them, we're going to be investing time, money, and even people and magic into protecting these. If we returned all of these, and kind of points down to the 5 shards that are in there, if we return them to their podiums, those are 5 additional locations that we now have to supply people for. They can easily be overthrown, where here, if somebody tries to take something within this city, it's going to be a little harder to just escape and disappear.
Was it noted which shard belonged to who, or rather who had it?
Not on the podium. Again, a safety measure to prevent people from, if anybody managed to get a hold of one, they wouldn't be able to easily identify where each one went to.
So I'm curious, did anyone bother to ask? Well, the gods themselves how they felt about this?
Are you asking that to the curator?
Yes.
He looks at you and nods and says, yes. We had a few contacts to attempt to find some answers in this. Avalana did assist, seeing as she had a connection to the Mother of Magic. It would only make sense that she was involved, so as we were discussing how to take care of this, we of course quickly asked Avalana if she could make contact, and we didn't hear anything for a while. So yeah, it took a while, but when we finally got through, yeah, the Mother of Magic gave her approval. Not only that, she made sure that this is protected.
I feel like this guy's pulling my leg.
What do you mean by Mistra gave protection to this place?
Well, you don't think this is the only building in Keleto that doesn't have magical infused alarm systems, right? He kind of looks at you like, right?
Circe goes to touch the glass, but stops like half an inch away, but kind of looks at the guy, just like, am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? Am I going to set it all off?
He watches you.
She puts her hand down.
He looks truthful to you, Freddy.
Freddy just nods and then looks at his own holy symbol of Tyr for a brief moment.
Circe looks at the symbol of Siphon on her journal and then hugs her book.
Aw.
Oh.
The only person who can see it to appreciate, but I did add a picture of what the journal looks like, Forge, so you can see it, but nobody else can. But I felt that was pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
This book's got
now I'm
tentacles
curious.
pulling out.
Was it like, so is it decorated with stickers and things, like some sort of like your middle school,
Like an old trapper keeper. Trapper
Yeah,
keeper.
trapper.
Yeah, except instead of stickers, replace it with eldritch tentacles that are just kind of like bleh and have eyes.
Arcane runes and eldritch tentacles.
Yeah, except the tentacles are real.
Okay. So, any questions for him? As all I was doing was basically highlighting each part here.
I got none.
I thought that was pretty well detailed.
Yeah.
Yar.
Now, as you kind of look everything over and try to take all of this in, the curator looks at you and kind of grins and says, now, if I am to understand things correctly, you are to take this information that you have learned here today and take it with you. And remember very specific details that are to be retold. I hope you found everything that you needed.
Yes, I believe we did. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. Okay. You can always come back and ask questions if you're not sure, but I don't know. From what I understand, Stormholms have pretty specific requests for you, so make sure you do it right. He kind of shrugs. It's like, I don't know. Like, he's getting to the point where, like, I have finished my tour. I need to leave. Okay, bye now.
Thank you for your help.
Then he kind of waves. Okay, bye. And starts running and makes his way downstairs. As soon as he leaves, everybody give me a wisdom saving throw, please.
Oh, good.
Oh, great.
Let's see who can do it.
Forge, is this a charm effect?
Nope.
Critical.
Critical doesn't mean shit.
No, but a 23 might.
23 might. Calypso.
1 second, pulling my sheet up.
Okay.
Haven't had to use it all night.
I know.
It's been a pretty good session, though. I've been
That's the
having
wrong
fun.
thing. Disregard that. Oh my god, my sheet keeps moving. Hold on.
God, why are you so bad at D&D?
Well, told to stop moving.
Well, it keeps freaking out when I do the push to talk, so it's like, oh,
Mhm.
move it up, move it down, blah.
Okie dokie. Party begins wandering around, looking around the chambers, and just kind of taking it all in. Some of you making notes, some of you kind of drift off, though.
Um.
Is our DM stuck on repeat?
No?
Yes.
We do have a list of the places we need to go to.
Yes.
Yep. Jest, Circe, and Vivian.
I'm sorry, what?
Everything around you disappears.
I have some questions. And some anxieties.
As everything goes dark, you stop and look up. Standing before you, cloaked in a very heavy black cape and cowl, sitting on the floor in the center of this room. The being looks up at you, reaches up, pulls the cowl back, and the blonde hair of Kai Gladomain glows in this lightning-filled dimension, looking up at each one of you, and says, "Huh. This is going to be easier than I thought."
God damn it!
Kill him, Eldritch Blast.
Hello.
Daggers, all the daggers.
Shock his ass.
I don't care.
Hello, sir.
He looks at you and smiles. "Oh, you know me."
Hi, Uncle.
From what I understand, we are related, though I just barely found out you existed. Well, I also found out that you're dead, so sorry.
Dead?
Circe
also
just
like-
looks at Vivian like,
But it
why are
also
you
sounded like-
apologizing?
But also sounds like you deserved it, so not sorry, I guess.
He looks
I
at you.
mean-
Wait, hold on, hold on. What do you mean dead?
Well, you were like murdered while you were a bull
Am
monster.
I'm right here in front of you. I am not dead.
I don't know. I feel like this might not be real.
I don't know. I guess you'll never find out, will you?
I mean,
You. Both of you.
I know you're.
All three of you. You are going to help me. Oh, you can laugh all you want, but if you thought
Sure, man. I'm already pretty deep with some other shit. What's one more thing to add to it?
I'm seriously just gonna reach over and cover Vivian's mouth.
he looks.
Just don't let her keep talking.
He looks at the three of you and says, "What I did to this realm will be child's play compared to what is about to happen here. I'm here to warn you. To warn the people of Keleto. An evil far greater than myself will decimate our entire realm, let alone the entire planet of Toril if she has her way."
Is that it?
Sir, are you trying to destroy this? Or are you trying to, like, is this like a word of being like, hey, we need to stop this, or hey, let's beat her to the punch, or...
You know, this might be one of those examples of a bad person doing a good thing.
Well, that is certainly something, isn't it? Listen, I don't have much time. I'm doing this because, well, I kind of don't have a choice at this point. If I am to ever exist once again, then I have to make sure that Arondis does not.
She pulls out her notebook and looks at him like, "Can you
Write that
spell that?"
The one known as the Lich Queen. She will be coming to our realm. Well,
Do
your
you have a picture of
realm.
her? Can you, like, materialize her face?
Oh, believe me, when you see her, you'll know it's her. Listen, I'm telling you this because, well, while I'm evil, she's the
Eviler?
incarnate. Yes, she'll... I can't even begin to tell you how bad things are about to be for you. Once the Lich Queen reaches this realm, she will take over everything in her sight. Everyone will bow to her. Certain things are put into motion that you will need to stop. One of which is this little endeavor that the Drow are sending you out for.
Oh?
So we shouldn't do what the Drow have said they would pay us to do. Well, that they won't pay us to do, that we should just do for them.
To get the artifact.
Well, sort of, yes. You see, Bynix's Eye is part of Arondis' scheme. She's going to use this item, this artifact, as a way to bring her minions here to take over this realm, using the Emerald Claw, of course, to do so. The Emerald Claw is what the Scarlet Hand would be in 30, 40 years, had they had proper training and the right magical prowess. If you are to see Arondis stopped, well, you're going to need to destroy that relic.
Destroy relic. Okay. What's next?
Well, there is no next. If you destroy the relic, that will temporarily appease things. There will be more, I'm sure. Arondis is resourceful. She's going to find her way and figure out whatever it is that she needs to do to get back in here and take whatever it is that she wants. I haven't done enough digging yet to know exactly what it is. All I know is this was her starting point.
So you'll be back with Plan B, basically.
Perhaps. Well, we'll see, I guess. Depends on how willing you are to accept me and then the next time I attempt to communicate with you.
What if I just agree to talk to you again? What if I agree to accept you already?
I mean, I can always use another follower.
Oh, I don't want to follow you. I'm already following someone else. But I mean, like, can I just accept you and, like, we're buddies?
Sure. We can do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, this whole black, like, darkness thing, feeling kind of claustrophobic right now.
Yeah. It's fun in here, isn't it?
Though, how exactly are we supposed to trust you? I mean, you are...
You're not. If you trust me, then everything you have learned here today is for naught.
You don't trust people that you meet in dark, mysterious rooms.
Yeah, but I'm saying this because
Seriously,
what
looks
if he wants
hurt.
us? What if this mysterious person right here wants us to destroy this artifact because it would bring him
Excuse me,
back?
I'm not mysterious. You know who I am.
You know what? Rich people and their crap that they do, it's ridiculous. This is why kingdoms fall. You were the problem.
No, I am the solution, my dear.
Yeah, Alpha, Omega, no. It's a nope from me.
Okay, if you wish not, then that's fine.
Don't worry, Uncle. What should I call you, man? Whatever. I'll deal with this. I'll just add it onto the plate of shit I've got.
He stops and looks at everybody here and then looks straight forward at Circe.
Circe waves.
And stands up and just kind of leans forward and just kind of grins and says, "Tell your mom I said hi." And then like that, you're immediately brought back with the others.
Also, your dad's an asshole.
Man, his mother should have swallowed him. Saved everybody the trouble.
Did the rest of us notice anything was up?
Give me a perception check.
You notice all three of them fall to the ground.
Jesus.
Wow.
This is scary how good I've rolled tonight.
Some good rolls.
Nope.
No.
I have a passive perception of 15.
Calypso again.
Perceptions.
Perception, please.
I'm good at these.
You're not so great at that right now. Celeste, you notice. I'll give you advantage, Calypso, on this.
All right.
So Celeste and Calypso, as you're kind of wandering around, you notice the three of them, Jest, Vivian, and Circe. They're just kind of standing there, like they're just kind of zoning out a little bit. Calypso, you notice immediately because your sister's just like out of it. You stop and you turn around and you're like, "What's going on? You okay? Hello?" Nothing.
Circe.
Wake up. Wake up. Freddy is so like entrenched into all of this stuff around him that he doesn't stop and notice. But Celeste, as you're kind of wandering around, you take a look at something and you're like, "Oh yeah, Vivian, your mom. Oh, Vivian? You notice that she's kind of standing off in the back.
And I'll like shake her gently by the shoulder.
And for a few moments, nothing. You're not able to get anything out of her and the others. They're just kind of out of it, which finally gathers the attention of Freddy. He's like, hey, what's going on? Oh, something's going on. Got it. Turns around and walks over. Eventually, the three of them snap out of it. All at the same time.
I was going to make a medicine check if possible, but...
I mean, you can. Go ahead.
That's alright.
Yeah, I mean, with that, you can tell they aren't poisoned or anything like that. They're okay. They're not catatonic or anything like that. They're just, like, zoned out of it. Just out of it.
And they just aren't responding to anything.
And not responding.
I mean, I guess that's a lot of information to take in, but goodness, guys.
But then
Calypso's gonna take out her Sharpie, and she's gonna doodle on Vivian and Jess's face.
Give me a sleight of hand check. Okay. Give me another one.
Ha!
As you're marking on their face, the first one, you go over to Vivian and you're kind of drawing on her face. Like, this is so funny. They're not even going to know. And then you walk over to the second one and you reach forward, and as you go to grab onto the head of Jess to be able to like stabilize it, to write on her forehead, she immediately wakes up, as do the others. And as soon as they do, you're like, oh my god, sorry.
Are you guys okay?
We need to go somewhere to talk, I think.
What about?
What happened?
Why were you all zoning out?
I think here is not the best place to talk.
That's fair.
Okay.
Circe nods at that, in agreement.
I need a drink.
Circe nods at that, in agreement.
I could drink.
And then on the way out, she walks over to Vivian and holds out a Siphon brochure.
If you would ever
and
like
a little
to
note
convert-
on it that says, because you seem really willing to join things you know very little about.
Oh my god.
Here, take this brochure. Everything is fine.
Thank you, Circe, but I already am devoted to someone. But I'll take the brochure.
Okay. So the party, taking a moment and like, holy shit, what was that? Quickly rush out of the Hall of Remembrance. And immediately you're like, yeah, we're finding an inn somewhere. We're gonna go. And you immediately start making your way towards the northeast, but that is where we will end tonight's session.
So you brought Kai back.
So I guess we've just remembered Kai into existence, guys. Good for us.
Well, I mean that
did
is
I?
the power. That is the power of being a god. If people know about him, he exists.
Mm-hmm.
That just means we need to kill him again.
He's
Or
just sitting
kill
there
all
like,
of his
And the
followers.
Queen.
all I need to do is get
I feel like we're forgetting about the most important thing he said, and it was that to watch out for the drow, and we have 2 half drows with us, so...
First of
You
all,
hate it?
traitor,
Wow.
you're really going to try and throw
Whoa.
people under the bus after trying to sign on with him as soon as you meet him. For
Twice
a second,
now.
For a second
Twice.
time.
I was not signing on with him. I'm already devoted to someone else.
But he
Like
had met
mother,
the
like
drow-
daughter.
Hey, can I be your best buddy?
Yeah, like he had met the drow that hired us to go
Find
over
this
to-
artifact.
Yeah, not just drow in general.
Also,
And they aren't half drow.
let's take everything that was said with a pretty extreme grain of salt. The man has a history of, manipulating people.
I don't know, guys. I think he's pretty great.
And being on the losing
Why
side.
did none of you
He's-
insight
he's,
check?
He's 0-1 on victories. Let's be real.
I mean, Jess is Sassy Pants McGee, so she's like, no, I know, but I don't trust anybody but myself, so it's a no.
After I gave you that cup of water,
Oh my gosh, a cup of water.
A whole cup of water.
it was a really good cup of water.
Oh, I
It's
bet it
gonna
was.
take more than water to win her over.
Yeah.
How about this cup of weird shrine goo?
No.
How about some Kool-Aid? It's purple, like Kaifon.
That's
I'm
the.
allergic to purple food coloring.
I throw it in your face and want nothing more to do with you.
All right, I'm gonna
You're
stream real
dead to
quick.
me.
Okay.